So if you're thinking about buying a new computer, maybe a new smartphone, or even just upgrading the one you have, you're going to want to pay very close attention. The price of this one critical component, something we've all completely taken for granted for years, is suddenly, well, it's exploding. And this isn't some far-off supply chain thing, it's about to hit your wallet hard.
Okay, let's just get right into it. What you're looking at here is basically the crime scene. For more than a year, the price of computer memory, we're talking about DRAM, it was flat, predictable, honestly, it was boring. And then, right at the end of 2025, this happened. It's not a little bump, it's a vertical wall. This is not a gentle market adjustment, it's a shockwave hitting the system.
You know, for decades, we've all lived by one simple rule. Tech gets better and it gets cheaper. That wasn't just for processors, it was for memory too. You'd wait a year and you'd get double the RAM for the same price. But that era, it looks like it might be over. The basic assumption we've all built our tech budgets on has just been flipped on its head. So this is the big question, right? What are we really looking at? Is this just another temporary price spike that'll go away in a few months, like we've seen before? Or is something much deeper changing here? Are we walking into a new reality where computer memory isn't a cheap commodity anymore, but a scarce and very expensive resource? That's what we're here to figure out.
To really get what's going on, we have to start with our primary suspect, the absolutely explosive growth of artificial intelligence. I mean, this isn't just some trend happening in the background. It is the single biggest new force in technology, and it is incredibly, incredibly thirsty for memory. Now, before we go any deeper, let's do a super quick refresh. RAM. Think of it as your computer's short-term memory, or maybe its workbench. It's where all the actual work happens at high speed. The bigger your workbench, the more stuff you can work on at the same time, and the faster everything feels. It's totally essential, from your web browser all the way up to a supercomputer.
And that brings us to the smoking gun. According to industry reports, late in 2025, one company, OpenAI, went out and quietly signed deals to lock up as much as 40% of the entire planet's production capacity for DRAM. Let that sink in. 40%. A single player made a move so huge it fundamentally broke the global balance of supply and demand, pretty much overnight.
So why does AI need so much? I mean, what's so different? Well, training a huge AI model is like trying to have every book in the Library of Congress open on your desk at the same time. You need a workbench, the RAM, that is just unimaginably vast. Then, to run something like ChatGPT for millions of users, you need massive fleets of servers, all stuffed with memory. And it's not just one type. AI systems use a whole cocktail of different memory technologies at once. The demand is so crazy that reports say these companies are buying up raw silicon wafers, the giant disks that chips are made from, before they're even cut. They're stockpiling the raw ingredients.
But here's the thing. One huge buyer, even one as big as OpenAI, doesn't create a crisis like this all on its own. It needed help. It had accomplices. Not in a criminal way, but in the form of problems that already existed in the supply chain that made the whole market incredibly fragile.
And this right here shows you the first problem perfectly. The memory market isn't a free-for-all. It's basically controlled by three companies: SK Hynix, Samsung, and Micron. Together, they make almost all of it. So this isn't some big, diverse marketplace. It's a tiny club. And that means the business decisions made in just a couple of boardrooms can and do affect the entire world's supply.
And those companies were already starting to change their priorities. Think of it like a restaurant. Let's say the restaurant realizes it can make a ton more money selling fancy gourmet meals than it can selling simple burgers. So it starts shifting its best chefs and best ingredients over to making the gourmet stuff. Suddenly, there's not enough kitchen capacity to make the burgers and fries that most people came in for. Here, the gourmet meal is something called high bandwidth memory, or HBM. It's super high profit and essential for AI. The burgers and fries? That's the regular RAM that goes into our computers and phones.
And you can see exactly how this played out. SK Hynix went all in on that profitable HBM for its AI clients. Samsung actually held back on making standard RAM, choosing instead to sell what little it made on the daily spot market where prices were higher. And Micron, here in the US, started pulling out of the consumer market completely, even getting rid of its popular Crucial brand. Each move made sense for them financially, but together they created a massive squeeze on the supply of memory for the rest of us.
Now, you're probably thinking, well, why don't they just build more factories? The thing is, you can't just flip a switch. A modern chip factory costs billions of dollars, takes years to build, and then takes even more time just to get the super complex process working right.
Supply just can't be ramped up quickly no matter how much money you throw at it.
So you've got a massive new customer in a market that's controlled by just a few players, who are already changing what they make and who can't build new capacity quickly. The result? A massive supply shock. And now the ripple effect from that shock is starting to spread across the entire economy.
And I really need to stress this. This is not just a problem for people building high-end gaming computers. This is hitting almost everyone. PC and laptop prices are already seeing hikes of 15 to 20%. Smartphone companies are warning it could be as bad as 30%. Car makers are seeing delays, and small electronics companies, they're reportedly being cut off completely, unable to buy the chips they need at any price. And this is where it stops being abstract numbers and gets really personal. This quote from someone on Hacker News just sums it all up perfectly. A memory kit that was totally affordable a few months ago has suddenly become a luxury purchase. That experience is what's making everyone look ahead and ask, what on earth happens next?
All right, so that's the chaotic mess we're in right now. But what does all of this tell us about the future? What is the prognosis for this new memory crisis?
Well, the signals the market is sending right now are frankly alarming. You have major PC makers, companies like Asus and MSI, that are literally panic buying any stock they can get their hands on. Industry-wide, the amount of inventory on hand has collapsed from a healthy 17 weeks of supply down to a dangerous 2 to 4 weeks. Some stores are even changing prices daily like it's the stock market. And maybe craziest of all, the market for old used RAM is booming, which is something we haven't seen in a very, very long time.
So how does this all end? Well, industry analysts basically see two paths forward. Scenario A is that this whole AI gold rush is a bubble. If it bursts, the market could get flooded with all this hardware people bought, and prices could crash. But in scenario B, which many think is more likely, this AI demand is permanent. It's a structural change. And if that's true, then the supply is going to stay incredibly tight until those new multi-billion-dollar factories finally start producing chips. And that's not going to be until 2027 at the earliest.
And this really brings us to the most important takeaway here. This doesn't look like one of the normal up and down cycles the memory industry always goes through. What we are witnessing feels more like a fundamental resource shift. A powerful new industry, artificial intelligence, has arrived, and it's basically rewriting the priority list for who gets these critical components. And it's putting its own needs above consumers, car makers, and pretty much everyone else.
And that leaves us with one final huge question to think about. For decades, RAM was just a component, another part on a circuit board that always got cheaper and faster. But now, as our entire world becomes more and more dependent on data and AI, has RAM changed into something else? Has it transformed into a strategic global resource, as critical and as fought over as oil or lithium? The answer to that question is going to define the price of our technology for years to come.